Hello, and welcome back to Looking for the Ocean, where we talk about everything Pixar's ever made and what it means to us. I'm Danny Mitson. As always, I'm joined by Mark Young. And today, we're doing a detour episode, because we're covering a Pixar short and a non-Pixar short in the same episode.
Whoa! A groundbreaker for us.
Not really, we've done it before.
Oh, okay. Really?
We did It's Tough to Be a Bug with Leonardo. I looked it up.
Oh.
It's Tough to Be a Bug. I know it was a ride, but it's a short, you know?
Alright.
Oh, that's what I wanted to add to the doc. Did you see that on Disney Plus's page?
What? I'm not on Disney Plus's page. I'm not checking their socials.
Well, I meant when you watch. I assumed you watched Sanjay Super Team there.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
There is a new National Geographic show coming out called A Real Bug's Life, which is obviously a detour we'll cover because it's outright has the Bug's Life logo on it. And I watched the trailer, and the trailer's inspired by Disney Pixar's A Bug's Life. So I'm adding that to our long list.
Is it animated or is it
No, it's a documentary about bugs.
Oh, well that's okay.
It's being marketed with the Bug's Life branding, and the marketing mentions it's inspired by A Bug's Life.
Hey kids, you liked this movie. What if they were real?
What if, and I want you to guess the celebrity who is the narrator of this show, because we'll have to put them in the picture. And also,
Bill Hader.
I will give. Well, then I was going to give you is that they're not in A Bug's Life, but it's not Bill Hader.
Okay, Mark Hamill.
No,
It's probably a bit too big.
Mark Hamill's probably too small for this.
What?
It's a much bigger actor in the general. If you
Morgan
advertise the
Freeman?
shows narrated by Mark Hamill, it would not get people excited. No, not Morgan Freeman.
Tom Cruise?
All right. Time to give you
Now
a
I'm
hint
a little confused.
that it is not a man. It's not a male. It is a she.
Daisy Ridley.
That's closer in age than the people you've been guessing.
Ariana DeBose.
No.
Florence Pugh.
All right, you're not gonna get it.
Well, okay, you know what I was thinking is sometimes when we do these games, I think I'm frustrated because I never get anywhere. What if you... I'm stealing this from another thing I listen to, but what if you give me a hot and cold if I'm closer or not closer? Okay.
All right, so we're starting with Daisy Ridley. That's hotter than Tom Cruise.
Okay. Daisy Ridley. Anne Hathaway.
Colder.
You had to think about that. That's interesting. Let me think. And now that I'm doing the game my way, I've run out of women. The British woman, Emily Blunt.
Colder still than Daisy Ridley.
Jenna Ortega.
Warmer.
Ayo Edebiri.
Warmer.
Now I don't really know the cast of Bottoms. Is it I don't know her first name. Oh, Rachel Sennett.
Colder.
Okay. Well, now I'm kind of I'm not sure I'm going to know this person. Is it
This person is someone I would be shocked if you did not know their name.
Okay. Elle Fanning.
That is colder than Ayo Edebiri.
Okay.
Maybe you shouldn't put them in the episode image, because then everyone will know the answer and they'll just be listening to this.
Wow. Well, I actually that's kind of a thing. I was thinking it's fun to do hot and cold when you know the answer, you know. But I'm kind of out of women. Okay, I'm gonna have to call it.
All right, no. I'm gonna give you one more hint, because you didn't say someone else from earlier, which would have also got you a warmer in a different direction with Ariana DeBose.
Ariana Grande?
All right, here's how I'm gonna give you the hints on what made them warmer. Ayo Edebiri, you got to. Who'd you say before Ayo Edebiri? Jenna Ortega. Jenna Ortega is a woman of color.
Mm-hmm.
Ayo Edebiri is more famous for comedy, even though The Bear is not really a comedy. She's more famous for comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Ariana DeBose starred in a Disney animated film, not a Pixar film, a Disney animated film. So those are your three hints. It's a woman of color, mainly known as being a comedian, starred in a Disney animated film.
Ooh.
Although I would say also, it's one of those forgotten Disney animated films that were recent because there's a little something called COVID-19.
Okay. Ooh. Oh, well, why can't I remember her name? Like, the Ghostbusters 2016. Why can't I remember her name? She's probably like
I will say this.
too old.
Any of the four Ghostbusters you guessed from Ghostbusters 2016 is a colder answer than the other three women you said.
Okay. I figure. Well, I don't know. I don't remember her name. She's very well known. Why don't you?
I'm talking about Leslie
Jones. Okay, thank you.
Because she's the only woman of color in
Well, that's
Ghostbusters.
what I was like. Here now, I feel like now I'm like on the spot,
right.
I'm forgetting everything.
Do you want me to give you a hint that reveals it?
Well, I don't know the woman who played the Manticore.
She's
in Onward,
also.
if
I'll
that's
give you
who it
another
is.
hint. This is will be the last hint I give you before the hint that reveals it. Not only is she in a Disney animated film, but she was also a Marvel love interest, an MCU love interest.
Is she the woman in the Marvels?
There are no love interests in the Marvels.
That's why it bombed. I have no idea. Are there women of color love interests in Marvel?
If it's a woman of color hero, to be very blunt about it. Now, what if I told you, Mark, that I need to go get my water bottle from the vending machine?
Okay, water bottle, Stanley, thirst.
What
drinking
brand of water bottle am I going to get from the vending machine?
Dasani. Dasani. Poland.
This is a bit. Are you purposely not guessing the person?
Poland Spring. No, I don't know. I'm trying to.
You're purposely not guessing the person.
I don't know.
Keep going through water bottle brands.
I'm not. Yeah, I know, dude. I thought that was what you were trying to get me to do, but I don't know.
I am, but you haven't got it.
Okay.
There's one person whose name is a water bottle brand.
Okay. A Pure Life, Krasdale, Evian.
All the episode.
Evian.
This is gonna be as infuriating to everyone listening as it is to me.
Smart Water.
You keep guessing every water bottle brand except the most famous one.
Aquafina. Aquafina. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Here's the thing that will reveal it. Let me name every water bottle brand before I give the right answer, who is the only celebrity whose name is a water bottle brand. Anyway, she's hosting the Bugs Life show. That's not what this episode's about.
Okay, great. Well, that's wonderful.
Name a water bottle brand. It's like name a woman. It's like name a water bottle. Name any.
Well, anyway, is that the news that you wanted to give us? That's the update for today.
I mean, I just forgot to add it to our master document. I just did.
Oh, okay.
But no, we're talking about Sanjay's super team and borrowed time.
Let's
start with Sanjay's super team. I feel like we did our intros enough with that little game because it drove me crazy.
Yeah. All right. So Sanjay's super team. It's about a boy who's
shows him from the Good Dino.
Yes, and it was made. Well, I mean, you probably have some info in front of you if you want to just talk about it.
Yeah, premiered at Anarchy, which is the big film fest. So it really actually premiered around the same time Inside Out did, like in theaters. Why is Mark laughing? Probably because he's trying to think of what
I'm coming down now.
It was just Let me open the production, see if there's any insight here. Sanjay Patel, Pixar animator. I don't know what he's most famous for besides this. Let's see if he has any credits. Worked on animator, Monsters Inc., Ratatouille, Cars, Monsters U, Toy Story 2. So he's been in the company since 1999. Started jobs and he was on A Bug's Life also. After this, he worked on Incredibles 2, and then left the company to basically write books, which we have some of his books eventually on our document if we want to cover books again.
Okay, great.
But his are like children's books, so like picture books, which I feel like would be more interesting to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very clearly like a work of autofiction, autobiograph, whatever you want to call it, because the movie ends with photos of him and his dad. But it's meant to be like about the Indian American, what do you call it? I always mispronounce this word.
Experience?
No, what is Black Panther about?
Diaspora.
Yes, that's the word I always make to set this out. Yeah, it's a movie about the Indian American diaspora. And yeah, it's just about a kid who wants to watch his cartoons while his dad is trying to meditate.
Yeah. And then the kid has a daydream about the Hindu gods fighting a demon, and then he draws them in his notebook, and then he shares the notebook with his dad, and his dad's like, oh. And that's like the nice ending for the short. I really... I liked this short. I like that it's about something that is true, but in the end, I just kind of felt like, yeah, I get it. It didn't... It's funny. It's funny because this is totally about something true, and I compare it to something like Bao, which is also a true story, but Bao is so much more moving,
Well... I have thoughts on this that have nothing to do with the short.
Okay.
And let me tell you where I got these thoughts from. And then eventually we'll talk about the short. But this is about the conversation around the short. Which I don't really remember other than people going like, wow, this is amazing. Which I feel like was kind of comparative because Lava came out that year. So, because compared to Lava, yes, this is an amazing short. As a short on its own, I think it's fine. But... I decided, because I normally, I got my letterbox in, like, November 2015, and usually when I re-watch the movies for the podcast, and I have a review, like, for example, Ratatouille. For some reason, I never had logged Ratatouille on Letterboxd, so I was like, I don't want to just put up a link to the episode. I'd like to write a review of Ratatouille, in addition to talking on the show about it, because people aren't necessarily going to listen to the show, so I'd rather have my thoughts on Ratatouille written out. So I'm like, have I reviewed Sanjay Super Team? Because I know I'd seen The Good Dinosaur, and I had a review up for The Good Dinosaur, but I didn't know if I was writing reviews for shorts back then. And I pull it up, and I just see 2 out of 5, overrated. That's the whole review. And I immediately just feel kind of embarrassed. Because I'm like, that feels very dismissive of what this is.
Yeah.
And I do think I think it is overrated in the sense that everyone was like saying it was an incredible short. I think it's a good short. But I think just listing overrated 2 stars out of 5 is really gross of past me. And it got me thinking how we're going to discuss this on the show. Because I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't know the Hindu gods. I don't know anything about these characters being shown. But I'm like, I don't think the answer was one. Obviously, I'm watching this like 20 minutes ago, so there's no way we can book a guess. But I think back to, I always talk about this episode of a show. I don't know if I talk about it on mic, but I talk about when we're booking guests. There's this show... I've read it like listed in articles like greatest podcast episodes ever. There's a show called, now it's just called Get Played, but in this episode it was called How Did This Get Played? And it was like a bad video game podcast. And they invited on a Native American to talk about Custer's Last Stand. I actually recommend everyone listen to this episode if they want to listen to a really good episode of podcast, because this is a really good episode. They invited a Native American on to talk about Custer's Last Stand, which is a Atari game where you were playing as General Custer and you got bonus points for being Native American women. And the episode of the show is like, whatever, like, it's a comedian, so initially they just talk about, like, where they are, like, blah, blah, and then they finally get to the subject of the game. He's like, why the fuck did you invite me on for this? I'm so offended that you're my friends, and you thought that you would need my historic context to make it okay to joke about this stuff and talk about this stuff. And we've had conversations about this behind the scenes where I've said in this episode about concerns about, like, booking, say, Coco or Soul and stuff like that, where it's like, where do we come as white people to address works like this? And Turning Red also in this way, too, I think we've discussed. And to be clear, Soul and Turning Red have not yet been booked. Coco has been. We've had this conversation.
And I also think that if it's the person that I remember we talked about for Coco, we actually do have a good person for Coco.
Yes, so. The person for Coco outright asked me. They are a Mexican American, but they outright asked me when I said I have a Pixar podcast, can I come on for Coco?
Yeah.
Which I think is very different than like being like, please come on Coco because you're a Mexican American.
Well, and I think that,
and that's how I feel like it would be for Sanjay Super Team. That's why I'm like, I feel weird about this anyway, because why would I want to invite anyone on for this to like give me context when I should just do research instead of watching the short 20 minutes before and not knowing who these characters are. But I also don't think they're really relevant in a way, and which sounds bad. Maybe that's like, again, white guy talking here. I don't think it's relevant for me to know what each of the gods are. I think the point is that he's getting connected to his heritage. But I'm a white dude, so what the fuck do I know?
To be clear about the Coco guest, there is more to him than being Mexican American, which I kind of don't want to spoil. I actually think he's like, I'm pretty excited about having him on.
I'm very excited to have him as a guest.
But anyway, well, I don't know why there was that big preamble to get us to the point where you're like, I don't care about who these people are, because
well, no,
I actually
that was what
think
I meant to say was that like I felt guilty about my overrated thing. So, but I'm also like, I don't think this is something where I could ever invite someone on to talk about it because I'd feel awkward about it. But I also don't have any context for the cultural stuff here. And I feel like this is what I was going to say, because it came to my mind when you mentioned how you think Bao is great. I think Bao, even though it is about a specific culture, is also just about a mom not willing to let go of her kid. Which is like, that is universal in a way that this isn't. Which I feel sad, because I feel like I feel like in a way, even giving like 3 out of 5, it's good, but I don't understand it, is something where, is it my own inability of not being able to connect to this? I feel like a little guilty about that.
Well, no, let me.
It's a referendum on myself.
Let me break this down for you. And also, I think if we had someone who knew Hinduism really well, they would be able to point out things like, oh, it's interesting that this is the representation of Hinduism that you pick, because Sanjay Patel talks a little bit in like behind the scenes about like which gods he chose. And why?
I'm glad you did research.
Well, I mean, it's honestly, it's not crazy stuff. Like, the benefit of having someone on would be to come on and say something like, "Why is the boy blue and the girl's pink and the monkey's green?" Like, what does that mean? Like, you could bring someone on with like gender studies backgrounds to like get into stuff like that. And I do think it's interesting that it's like. Like a boy and his dad, whereas like I don't know why we keep talking about Bao just because I think that short is like a guaranteed tearjerker compared to this one, and like a Bao is about like a great many people, but this is just about like a boy and his father. So there's something about gender here, I think. I don't know exactly what that might be, but anyway, my experience watching this is that I think that it is just not it's not a super compelling idea, even though it's relatable, and I actually do think it's relatable, but I just think that the way that the plot is laid out makes it kind of whatever, because if you were a Catholic and not in one of the new churches that they've made, but one of the old churches, if you went to church in one of the old things with like lots of rock and statues around, like it's definitely something that people did as young Catholic people, is watch or imagine that, the statues of saints come to life and like crawl around the ceiling and fight each other like that. I just think that there's this connection that we make between the boy and his dad not getting along, and the action scenes have nothing to do with that. Yeah.
And I have to assume, as you said, like, it's playing into who they actually are, but I think this short, I feel like, and I think when we read his children's books, I imagine his children's books, from what I can tell, are also about Indian culture and Hindu culture. I think it's something where it's like, I want to teach kids about who these people are, but since it's a silent short, we don't actually, if we have no context on who these people are, we don't get to learn. But I also think we're not the target audience for this. I think the target audience is Indian kids who go to Pixar movies and just see, like, no Indian characters. Mm-hmm. Or, like, kids who go to animated movies. I was actually looking this up, and I can't find any connection, because I saw, oh, he's got started on The Simpsons, you know? I was like, is he in the trouble with Apu? He is not. I had assumed he might be if he made this short about Indian, how he, like, wanted to put good Indian representation in animation, but he isn't, but whatever, that's fine. Because really, you know, I've never watched that doc, which is really funny people like bring this up as citing. It's like, that doc, though, really gets into, like, the problem of Indian representation in animation and children's media, where it's like, I think about the only Indian representation I remember from cartoon as a kid was Sanjay from the Fairly Odd Parents, which is, like, not really great representation either. It's just, here's a kid with an Indian accent who goes to your school. My main thought of it as a short film was not necessarily the action scenes that are unnecessary, which they are, but I like the art style. I think it looks better than the real world stuff. I don't want to compare too much to Bao, because I do think Bao, we agree, is a greater short, and the only reason I think we're comparing them because they are about, like,
they're about
and their kids.
Parent-child relationship.
Not just because they're only POC, like, Pixar shorts. I feel like we need to put that on record. And if you don't think we need to put that on record, you can cut that interjection.
No, I mean, I don't. If it's, you know, that's not why. I feel like everyone's like, look, this is a parent-child short, and it's unlike the
exactly.
You know, it's like the volcano shit and the
Bao.
The cloud and all that.
Wait, let me make the point then. Now that I put that disclaimer out there, because I'm worried how we're gonna be construed. Bao is a short from the mother's perspective, where the catharsis comes from the son doing something at the end, right? Mm-hmm. This is about, from the son's perspective, at the end, he walks away from dad to watch TV. Dad looks sad, but then dad is shown like he drew the gods in his notebook. And that's the ending. I feel like the ending needs to give you more of the dad's reaction to the notebook, other than, oh, that's nice, son, because that's really the, like, I think you're supposed to get more out of it, but I don't personally get there. To me, my thought goes, dad's gonna be annoyed that he, like, felt the need to contextualize the gods as superheroes. Which I know is not supported by the short, but that's just my personal experience with my own father that I'm bringing to it, where it's like, I mean, I don't think it really is that much of a thing, but if it was like, you know, if I go home and like, oh yeah, this god is like, this god is like Jesus is like Superman, right? I think my father gets more annoyed than anything, like, no, Jesus is just Jesus, right? Like,
well, aren't you evangelical?
I would say that even though we are labeled evangelical, my parents would not consider themselves that, even if they are conservative.
You're not Catholic, right? Like, you don't have saints Catholic. And everything. So you really can play dolls with the saints, you know. You can mix and match with these guys. There are a fucking 1,000 of them, and you can make them do whatever you want. And that's why there are all these movies about Francis of Assisi and everything. And no one gets mad about those, but people get mad when you make a movie about Jesus. And so that's what I'm like. I'm not saying it's the same thing. Like, I can't say that, like, this is how it is in Hinduism. But there's definitely a world in which you can, like, kind of play around with the representation of religious characters. And people are kind of, like, fine with it, you know.
I think regardless, I need more from the dad at the end of this short.
Well, but that's the other thing is,
the notebook.
I get that, but I think that I really connect more with the outside, the real world than you do. I really appreciated how stark everything was, and I kind of like that we don't get this big melodramatic reaction from the dad at the end. Because, like, that seems also real to me. It seems like there's a lot of... I don't even need, like, a
hug or anything. I would like maybe he puts his hand on his shoulder and, like, leafs through the book. That would also maybe that would make it more cinematic. Just have him, like, draw multiple pictures and leaf through the book. Mm-hmm. And I would just feel something then. Because it's like, oh, then you're overwhelmed by, like, how much your son's effort put into this. Or something like where you can just read that into it rather than, look, Dad, here's my superheroes, but on top are the gods, the Hindu gods. I'm just like,
okay, I'll buy that because I'm about to make the opposite argument about borrowed time, where I think it needs more. So I respect.
Oh well, I have thoughts on. I think our borrowed time part is going to be interesting. I think that's a short a lot of people like.
I think borrowed time is not good.
I would agree, but we should probably wrap up Sanjay before we go on to it, because I think we're going to have more to say about borrowed time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot more to say about Sanjay. I really think that it's like... I
like the pictures at the end. The pictures at the end make me more emotional than anything else in it. It's like, oh, here's his dad. That's nice.
And I mean, I don't know, I recommend it because I don't know if we've talked about this, but there's a Spark short. Have we talked about the Spark short, or there's another short where, like, the grandma likes wrestling? Or something like that?
We haven't talked about that yet. That's called No No.
Okay.
But we haven't got to
so I watched that a while back, but it's the same. I love it for the same reasons. It's they're very similar actually. But I love how drab the real world is, but it's clearly a place where people live. Like it's like you recognize this
like
place.
Inside Out.
Yeah. Well, I don't like Inside Out because, like, why do these rich people live in a shitty house? But, I accept that, I don't know, just, like, if you're not some super rich
I'm
white
curious
person,
if Inside Out 2, if the house is still going to be shitty. Will they fix it up in a couple years? We'll see.
We'll have to do a special news update when that trailer drops.
We get to actually see
in the middle of Seoul or something. It's like everyone. All right, so.
Well, no. When we get to Seoul, the movie will have already been out.
Oh well, I don't know what movie it would be during.
But I want to say one other thing, and this is kind of hint, hint, nudge, nudge to the listeners. We've already recorded next week's episode, but a big thing we talk about with the Good Dino, which I think we can talk about without really spoiling the episode, I think it's something people know about the Good Dinosaur, is that it really appeals to little kids in a way a lot of Pixar movies don't, or at least it's attempting to. And I think in that sense, Sanjay Super Team is like a very well done companion short, because it also feels like it's aiming very young. But the difference is, I think like Sanjay Super Team is very much, it's encouraging that curiosity about different cultures in a way that's, it's like, to me, and this is like me making it like very white and European, but it's like, oh, we have a bunch of children's books at school, but then we have a mythology book where it's like, look for the Greek gods. That's what this kind of is. It's like, before the Good Dino, look, check out these Hindu gods. They're neat. You know? Mm-hmm. And I think that in that way, this short is appealing and is successful. Mm-hmm. In a way that I feel like it's impossible to analyze as someone who first saw it when they were 20 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if we talk to like someone who was 10 when the Good Dinosaur came out and is now 19, what they would think about Sanjay Super Team, if they would remember it.
We got to do some
Although, honestly, I think the Good Dinosaur is a little too young for a 10-year-old anyway.
We got to do some experiments. Like, we know people with young children. We've just got to stick these in front of them. I don't know why you're not suggesting, like, you know, you have kids. You can do whatever you want with them. You know, in your little school, your laboratory, you can just be like, hey, guys, Disney Day. Let's watch some shorts that I have upcoming episodes about.
One, no, I can't. That's not allowed. Two, I have done that for some Disney shorts. We've talked about it before, I believe in the Presto episode, that I've shown Presto to these kids. I know when we talk about Bao, I'll bring it up again. But I just wouldn't pick Sanjay Super Team because it's not really my thing. Now I might, because I've seen Sanjay Super Team. I'm curious how it plays with kids, but I've rewatched it. Now I'm curious how it plays with kids, but yeah.
All right, borrowed time.
All right.
Do you have?
Do you want to go first?
Well, do you have the credit information?
Directed by Andrew Coates and Lou Hamoun Wahaj.
All right,
I'm
not. We can't let. Hold on. Keep talking about stuff, and I'm gonna get these guys' names.
These guys both started at Pixar around 2008. Lou started with Wall-E. I'm checking if Andrew Coates started with Wall-E as well. No, actually, he didn't show up at Pixar till Cars 2, but he'd worked at Blue Sky before. That's where he started, was Blue Sky. He worked on Horde and Here's a Who, an Ice Age short, and then Ice Age 3. In Rio, but then after Rio, he moved to Pixar, worked on Cars 2.
Mm-hmm.
And was at Pixar through apparently Smash and Grab, where he worked as an animator on it, which is a Spark short. And then Lou has been at Pixar. He was a character modeling lead on Onward, so I assume he's probably working as a character modeler on like some other upcoming, maybe Elio or something like that. Because Onward was still pretty recent, that if you were a character modeling head, you might be working on something that's not out yet.
Yeah. And these guys are Andrew Coates and, I believe, Lou Hamu Lodge. So, there you go.
Cool. Thank you for fixing the name. Cancel me.
All right. So...
This is when Pixar worked... They worked on something called Pixar's Co-op Program. This is like a precursor to Spark Shorts that has a lot less funding. I don't think this would come out as a Spark Short, though.
Yeah. A lot of blood.
My basic take on this is, well, you know what? Actually, give your basic take first, because my basic take might be a little long.
It reminds me of that hard Bugs Bunny image, where he's like got a gun, and it's based off of Desperado. I think it's based off of Desperado.
Desperado,
like,
why don't you come to?
Oh, the things that I've done. And actually, like, I don't mind that. I think that it's a very pretty... I think that it looks very good, and I think that it has, like, a really terrible story. And that's about it. And I just think that the story is just not there if you think about it for a moment. Like, so what's going on in this short? And it's... Wait,
what? Why are you giving the plot before I gave my thoughts?
Well, it occurred to me that we hadn't given the plot, but maybe we should do that before we give our thoughts.
It's about a cowboy who wants to commit suicide because he accidentally killed his dad 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Alright, so here are my thoughts.
Okay, yeah, that's basically the short.
In the form of a story, which is that in 2018, I graduate college, and I move to Chicago, where I quickly become a member of AMC Stubs. And what's great about living in Chicago is we get every movie, something that's never been open to me before in my life, is having an option to see basically every single movie that comes out. And with AMC A-List, of course, I do. And one thing that's very exciting is that this year, in 2018, when the Oscar noms come out, I can go see the short films at AMC. And I go, awesome, let's go see the animated shorts and live action shorts. See the animated shorts, whatever, they're not relevant to the story. I go to the live action shorts. And let me tell you what each of these are about. The first is a film called Mother, which is about someone, it's a one-take short film, where they get a phone call saying their child on the beach, saying someone creepy is walking up to them and trying to like lead them away. And the short ends with the phone dying and the mom breaks down crying. Actually, very good short. But very dark. Next one is the only one that isn't dark. It's called Marguerite. It's about old lesbians who fall in love. Nice. The one after that is called Fauve. It's about two kids who are playing around and having fun until one of them falls into concrete and dies of being buried alive by cement as they slowly sink into concrete.
Hell yeah.
I'm like, no, not hell yeah, just depressing as shit. I'm like, okay, surely next one can't be bad. The next one is called Detainment, which is a true story about the two 9-10-year-olds who murder a 3-year-old kid. And it's taken from the court documents of it. And it's just disgusting. Very disgusting short. Morally feels apprehensible.
Reprehensible.
Okay. Then, the final one, which ends up winning the Oscar, is called Skin. Skin is a short about neo-Nazis who, their son, makes eye contact with a African-American man holding a toy in, the supermarket, for his own son. And when the neo-Nazi dad sees this, he follows the African American man into the parking lot and beats him up, frantic, nearly kills the guy. Okay, whatever. Short then, I should be laughing.
Is that the whole
But
short?
It's just like one. No. You think like, okay, so this is like gonna end badly, or like the son is going to realize something here. No! A group of black men kidnap the neo-Nazi and dye his skin black with tattooing. And it's supposed to make you think.
Oh, I heard about this.
And then...
Damn, what if, right?
The neo-Nazi goes home to see his wife. The neo-Nazi's wife shoots him because there's a black man in my house. And at that point, I've already just been like,
whoa,
I'm checked out. And this wins. This, of course, wins. I'm like, I leave this short and I go, the only one I'd vote for really is Marguerite. Maybe Mother, because Mother was well made. But
yeah, that sounds...
everything else here was just dark, depressing, and stupid. And I'm watching Borrowed Time and I go, of course this got nominated for an Oscar. It's so edgy. That's really my whole thought. Is like, to spoil the short, which everyone listening to this podcast watches these shorts, I assume, the moment he shot his dad, I just started laughing. I was just like, of course! Because earlier on, I'm like, oh, I see. This is like an edgy Pixar short, because it's like about suicide, ideation. It's about, there's a gun, and he's like showing off the gun, and it's the West, and that wouldn't be allowed in a short. Oh no, it's literally a Chekhov's gun that we fire, killing him in the stupidest way imaginable. The most contrived way possible so he can feel guilt about it. Even though the father handed him the loaded gun to help him up. I'm just like, this is dumb. I can't deal with shit like this. Yeah. Immediate disengagement with the entire story. As soon as that happens, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like...
Okay.
I'm sorry. I immediately just completely started laughing, and I found the entire short to be cosmically funny.
Yeah. So I don't even know what the fuck they're doing in this short, because yes, this sheriff does walk to the edge of a cliff, and he's like having flashbacks to when his dad died. But when his dad died, it's not really clear what's going on, because they're on this wagon running away from somebody, or they're driving away from somebody, and he's like shooting over his back at whoever was pursuing them, and they hit a rock, and then the wagon breaks, and then his dad goes over the lip of the cliff,
and they get to recreate the Lion King for a bit in a way. That's the whole thing too. Is I had this thought. Well, no, I have a thought that I'm saving for the Soul episode for my rewatch. But it kind of reminded me of my thought when I watched Soul, but I'm still not going to say my thought from Soul. But it's like, I feel like a lot of times you can tell something is bad because they seem to think that you're going to forget other things exist. And in this case, it's like, everyone has seen The Lion King. Why is this framed exactly like The Lion King? Surely you could have found a different way to do this. Mm-hmm. To not immediately evoke The Lion King. Because I don't think they're trying to evoke The Lion King, but it just happens naturally because of what is going on.
Yeah. I also think The Lion King is more effective, because even though Scar
Obviously.
puts... Well, yeah, but even though Scar puts the idea in his brain, there is this logic to, oh, well, if the dad tried to save me, then I'm responsible for his death. I think that's more of like a real thing in the world, is something that you'd be guilty about after the fact. And obviously you'd feel guilty if you shot your dad, but that's kind of goofy.
It's just oh, I feel so guilty I killed my dad. I'm like, okay, I'm so I understand that in real life this isn't how trauma works, but your dad handed you a gun, a loaded gun, to help you pull him up when you're a scrawny teenager who's clearly weaker, and your dad's protecting you through that. Your dad is huge, and then you accidentally shoot your dad. Oh, I don't know what your dad was expecting to have happen.
Yeah,
also,
he wasn't long for this world going around like that.
Can I just say, this short up to this point is silent, and then all of a sudden they start talking, and I go, what the heck? This is a talking short? What is going on here? And not only is the thing is, once they start talking, it's not like Dad's like, put the safety on. He doesn't say the obvious thing to say. Or careful,
Well, yeah,
the gun is loaded. He doesn't say that.
Yeah, I just had to think about that. Like, why? Like, how? Like, how do those guns work? You know,
okay, there might not be. I don't know how it works in the Old West. Maybe safeties don't exist. I don't know, but you know what does exist? Careful, son. The gun is loaded.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can still have, if even that's there and then he shoots his dad, I'm not going to laugh as much at it, because at least then I'm going to be primed for the possibility. So when it happens, I'm just going to go like, ugh, whatever. You know, I'm not going to like laugh at like, oh, okay, this is one of those like misery things. So it's like, what's the most miserable thing we can come up with for this cowboy? Oh, what if he like shoots his dad and is covered in his dad's blood when he's trying to save his dad from falling off a cliff?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a mess. And also, like, I wonder what happened to the people who were, like, chasing after them. It feels like, you know, obviously
I don't know,
that's...
40, we got 40 years later, so...
Yeah.
I'd always assumed this was a short about time
horses...
travel.
What?
I'd always had assumed this short was about time travel, because it's like, the posters have clocks all over them. I'm like, oh, cool, this is going to be like a time travel short. No!
Well, it's because he's borrowing time from his dad, who sacrificed himself.
I think about the line from Barbie, where the line that always makes me cry, where it's like, mothers stand still so their children can see how far they've come, or something like that. And is that not the point of, like, parenthood? You cannot say you're living on borrowed time from your parents, because your parents, people choose to have children so they live beyond them. So the whole idea of it's like, I'm living on borrowed time from my father is something I immediately can't buy into, because like, no, you're his son. He gave his life to give you a better life. But he's like, no, I killed my dad. Your dad handed you a loaded gun! Like...
Yeah, he can't go back. It's like, my dad, every he goes back to the town, everyone's like, yeah, your dad was kind of dumb. Oh, well.
And it's also, again, it's like, he's clearly aged, like, 30 or 40 years when he's doing this. I'm just like, what? Mm-hmm. Tell me in 30 and 40 years, this is somehow coming back to you. Like, maybe this short work, here's where Danny tries to rewrite the script, which I know is poor criticism, but it's like, maybe this script is about his wife is pregnant with their own kid or something like that, or his own kid is now the age he was when his father died. And maybe we can get some catharsis out of that. But no, this short is so concerned with being edgy and being adult, being like an adult Pixar thing, that it forgets that the reason Pixar works and stories work in general is that we get an emotional attachment to characters in a way that we can like feel connected to them, and maybe we can learn something. Because that's always what I say, is like, you can give me the darkest shit possible, but if it has, like, an ending where I feel like people have learned something, or, like, it's a happy ending, or, like, even if it's something like The Dark Knight, where, like, Gary Oldman gives a speech where it's like, Batman's still gonna protect us, I'm gonna still feel fulfilled at the end of it. Mm-hmm. Right? The night is darkest before the dawn. all that stuff, Christopher Nolan. From however many years ago. Isn't that, like, movie, like, just 15 now? Just turned 15?
I don't know.
But anyway...
You know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, and I think too, it's weird that at the end of the short he just breaks down crying. That's really the thing that like sealed the deal for me, is that it has such a student film thing where it's like, oh man, if he cries, then that is like the end of the short. I think that is one of the most important things that you can go back and tell your like film school self, is that emotions are not plot, and you have to have a good plot. I make this joke, I think it's a joke that only I appreciate, about Magic Mike 2, which begins with him frowning, and then the ending is the same shot, but it's sunny and he's smiling. And
that's a character arc. Mike starts the movie depressed, ends happy, and throughout the whole film, we like Mike more and more because we see his relationships with other people. We see, all that. And this is not to say you can't make a film about someone who wants to commit suicide, who is lonely. Mm-hmm. But I do think to just end with him crying alone is like, what was resolved here? Like, he saw the watch his dad gave him as a child, and is now like, oh, well, now I can live my life because I found a watch. No, it doesn't feel like an ending at all. This is why I'm like, put a kid in here, have the ending be like, runs up to him and goes, maybe open the short with like him leaving home. Kid's like, Dad, don't go. He leaves. End short, he sees the watch, his son runs up, picks up the watch, hands it to Dad, and then Dad starts crying. He doesn't need to almost fall off the cliff. The son can just run up, find the watch, try to convince him to stop. And again, here's the other thing. I don't know why they start talking. There's no, like, that's the whole thing too. Is like, this short would have worked fine silent. It would have been better silent, because again, once they start talking, I'm like, why aren't they like talking to each other about the important stuff here? Like the gun could go off.
Yeah, and I think too that like, oh man, I totally forgot where my train of thought was going. But yes, I agree with you. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. I think that, you know, there's an interesting exercise in this for me. I'm putting on my like Roger Corman hat, and I'm like, can you rewrite this short without adding another character that would be super hard to animate? Can you do it? Like, can you like change this and still save money? I think that's an interesting question, because I do think that is, you know, a likely culprit. Now, I don't want to get theoretical about the behind the scenes stuff, but, you know, just like, you know, why do you have only 2 people? Why does this guy just cry, you know? And it's like, well, people are really a pain in the ass to animate, so I don't want to go too crazy with it.
I think the whole idea about it being about suicidal ideation, when it's clearly set 30 or 40 years after this incident, is something I find so hard to buy into once I figure out why it all happened. Because I'm like, it's been 30 years or whatever, and it's okay not to process things. People don't process that. I'm not judging people who don't process things. My thing is, it's like, clearly he has lived a life that has not gone right since then, and we see none of it.
It's because he hasn't shaved. You can really tell.
And he suddenly he's wrinkly too. That's the thing too, Mark, is like, you say like, we can't add a character model. We have 3 character models in this short already. So maybe we find a way to cut one of the character models, or like maybe make it so like Dad died like 3 months ago and something like that, where like the guilt being fresh makes sense. Like, well,
yeah, and I just feel like he needs to die at the end, you know? Like, there needs to be some material change.
I think I don't mind him not dying at the end, because then it's just like, okay, well, this is a story about someone explaining why they're committing suicide and then they do it. Which doesn't feel that satisfying, but I think the answer they have currently of like, he discovers the watch and realizes his dad cared about him more than would want him to survive and rather than die is like, okay, but it looks like you wasted your whole life already. Like, you know, like, you look like you're old now, and like, I don't know.
You know what you could do, and it would be a little bit more expensive? But you need to reuse the location too. So I was gonna say, you could like you could set this whole thing in a house, and have him like about to shoot himself in the head, and then he hears like the voice of his children being like, "Daddy, come out to play." He's like, oh, well, I guess I won't kill myself today. But even then, you kind of have to reuse the cliff location. It's fun to think about this. Like, how would you, like, what can you do in these settings and save money?
I think, Mark, and this is not answering your question, I think the answer would be, we go to the story level of breaking this thing, realize we need we need another character in there, and we go like, well, maybe these character models don't need to be hyper detailed. So then we can actually tell the story we need to tell.
Maybe. I mean, that's their deal, you know? These guys are both character animators.
Well, maybe they should have found a story that serviced their characters rather than try to make the edgiest thing possible. Be like, look, we can put blood on our characters. We can have them accidentally kill each other. They can kill themselves. It's like, okay, great. I'm glad we reached the point where the cartoons can kill themselves. And that sounds a
Finally.
little like dismissive of adult animation, probably. But my thing is with like good adult animation is, and I'm talking about like stuff like BoJack Horseman or Anomalisa, is like they generally like have a idea behind them that isn't just like. I think there's no idea behind this. Personally, I think it's just what can we do that could be edgy and show that this isn't from Pixar and prove our worth as animators on our own, not needing to be in the Pixar studio system. While neglecting the idea of like, why should I care, right?
Yeah.
That's where I come back to. There's no reason to care about this character because we're told. It's kind of like also, you know what, the famous like Finding Nemo problem with Andrew Stanton, like movie wasn't working because we had a flashback at the end where Marlin revealed Marlin lost his kids. We put that flashback at the beginning of the movie. Does this short work better if it's told in order? Probably. I stick by that jumping ahead 30 years with this older character model makes no sense. But if you tell the story in order and just say like a year or so, like maybe you put up a title card like 2 or 3 years later, and instead of using your character model in an old version, you give him a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Short works better.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We could brainstorm for like another hour about this.
I'm not trying to find the perfect answer. I'm just trying to point out that there's no.
Yeah.
In this whole thing, it's like the whole thing is like, even if I buy into this whole story and the ending of him seeing the watching, like, oh, I have a reason to live. I see this old man, old shelf himself, and I'm like, no, you don't. Like, I'm sorry to be blunt. It's like, you've wasted your life at this point. You
like,
seemingly have no family to live for. So it's like, and you have this big regret, and it's like, oh, I have a reason to live. No, you don't. Like, I'm just confused what the watch does to give him that reason. Other than, oh, my dad once left me 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say. It looks cool.
It does, but you know what looks better? I prefer the stylization of Sanjay's super team.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and because you do have some kind of emotional. That's why I like the realistic location of Sanjay's super team. Like, man, these guys don't have a lot of money.
I feel like Sanjay's super team has an emotional connection attempted that I don't personally get to until I see the photos at the end. Which is like, that's a bummer. I wish this short connected with me more. But it tried, is the thing. To me, it's like, it tried. It works as a functional piece of drama, even if I didn't cry at the end of it. This isn't functional at all. This is like clearly something that on the script level does not work. Mm-hmm. And I'm so curious, like, this is like a 3.8 on Letterboxd. It's clearly like a very well-regarded short, but I'm like, what is to like about it other than the animation? I'm just
what do people say? You've got Letterboxd.
Well, my favorite one from my top review from my friends, Mary Conti says, "The honey, where's my super suit in The Incredibles is infinitely more mature than this." And I agree, Mary. You're right.
But no one has like a big long review where they're like, when I shot my dad.
All right, William Leo Vander Zandim goes 3.5 stars. This is the third most liked reviewed on Letterboxd. The top two ones are like, one of them's a joke, the other one's a positive one that's like a sentence long. Imagine if they start making serious films like Anomaly. So okay, Jordan, shut up. All right, Willem says, "Wow, Pixar going adult. Just some honest opinions on this. The way in which the forgiveness theme is presented is nearly perfect. It really pushes the heartstrings like any Pixar film or short would, but has a bit of edge to it. Nice bit of edge to it. Very precisely edited, design of the character is great. Music is melancholic you'd expect from Santo Lala, who I know is like a composer that's well regarded in other regards, but I didn't look at his credits. The whole look of it is gorgeous. The one question of it is, I kind of like this, 3.5 stars. One question of it is, why animation? I'm totally behind the idea of pushing the boundaries of animation to the realm of adult, making adult animation more mainstream, but seeing this animation on its own, it's a little unnecessary. Animation is a tool to make things that are real, that aren't done so easily in real life. Even with Anomalisa, a story that could be easily done for real people, the animation has a purpose. Here it's just they study animation, not live action, and thus they only make this film that way. Nonetheless, a very different thing. I want either this or Piper to win it being the short film animation category in the Oscars next year. None of the two get in. I'll be screaming.
Wow, ancient Letterboxd review. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's something about like all of these dark films with like gritty characters or about like redemption or forgiveness or something like that. And I think I'm a little bit sick of. I'm just like, just fucking shave, man. Like,
what is grief if not love persevering?
Truly, or whatever. I don't know. But I think that like, I don't know. I just don't see. I feel like obviously, there is this element of forgiveness, but I also think that like with something that's like complicated like PTSD, there's not really. It's not just about like forgiving yourself, It's not like and these memories and these regrets that you have, like there's more to it than just forgiving yourself. Like I think it'd be pretty silly if even though we've talked about like, bruh, your dad gave you a loaded gun, this was on him. It'd be pretty silly if in the short he came to that realization. He was like, you know what? This wasn't on me.
Well, you know what might have worked? You know what might have worked? If a certain thing that we might talk about more next week was element here. Where's Ghost Dad? We could have had Ghost Dad pop up.
Oh, yes. Ghost Dad is the reuse character model solution to this.
And everyone listening to next week is going to hear me coin the term Ghost Dad and be like very excited about it. I'm glad I can already use it this week before that episode comes out. Is Ghost Dad popping up with Fix's short?
Fantastic.
I wanted to talk about one other thing before because it was a detour. Not detour, a tangent I mentioned last week. I'm like, I'll start bringing this up next week, and I didn't. And that is Nick Patera, who I believe voices the son in this, even though none of the voices have actual like credits assigned in them. Nick Patera is someone we could have done a detour episode on, but I chose against it because I feel like doing a detour episode on a person is kind of weird. Nick Patera is a Pixar animator who's working there for like I don't even know since when, but he's been there for a long time. He's still there, but he became a viral sensation in 2011 where he posted on YouTube a one-man Disney. Sorry. His first one is A Whole New World where he does Aladdin and then he does Jasmine, and he hits all the Jasmine notes perfectly with a perfect falsetto. And he was kind of a bit of a phenomenon. And he's still like a very successful recording artist in addition to recording at Pixar. But he does mostly like Disney covers or like musical theater covers because he has like a really good falsetto. But he can also do like the Aladdin part perfect too.
Yeah, I kind of, you say you don't want to do a detour on him. I didn't know who this person was until last night when you were like, oh, we get to talk about Nick Patera. And I looked him up and I was like, who is this? And I am blown away by him. I know I'm late to the party.
Well, we can add him into like we have a list at the end of the document of stuff we can go back to. We can put him on there if we want to.
If he has like a cover album or something, it might be worth bringing somebody on and listening to it.
Well, let's check Spotify really quick.
I can't believe this. Oh, I don't want to check it on air. Let's check it after the episode.
I already searched Nick Patera.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't... Okay, now I don't know. Nick Patera's really interesting. His singing of Jasmine's parts is just
He has
wild.
a Christmas album.
Yeah, it does
in
have
2017. That's his only album. Everything else is singles.
Uh-huh. It's crazy how much of, like, a Disney child he is. Like...
Yeah, well, he works at Pixar. Living the dream.
Yeah. But just, I don't know, like... It does go back to, you see these like the voice people they get are really from everywhere, but then you get people who come on as actual animators and they're like, oh, I love the old Disney movies and all that kind of thing, and it's just kind of surprising. But I guess other people go to Cartoon Network or somewhere like that. Do we have anything else that we need to talk about this episode?
No, I don't think so, other than giving the movie stuff.
All right, we got to give the movie something. A lot of shows like to give films things like stars or thumbs, but here at Looking for the Ocean, we just like to give the film something like an object or a present that represents how we feel about it. I'm I want to give this film something that is not, kind of unusual for what I normally give movies. And I guess I'm just going to give it to them both at once. I'm going to give Sanjay's Super Team a high five, and then for Borrowed Time, because I guess it is like about being old and full of regrets. I don't know. I didn't like Borrowed Time, but it reminded me of a line from a play that I saw maybe a few months ago that was about like these people getting old and everything like that. And this was an excellent show. It was called Crumb. It was directed by a friend of mine. And there's a line in the show where the old woman, who's kind of got dementia or something, she has a very hard life, and she has this line that maybe it's a cliche or whatever, but it stuck with me when she said it. But it was like, when you're young, you think that you don't want to live past 50. And when the time comes, you're gonna live fast and die young. But then,
isn't that like Benjamin Button's about?
I mean, maybe, but then she says, but then you get to that age, and suddenly you don't want to die. And I'm really butchering it, like it's much more poetic. But there's something about the way that play explored like getting old that I wish was more a part of Borrowed Time. So I'm going to give it a performance of the play Crumbs of Joy.
I'm gonna give Sanjay Super Team a I don't know. Maybe I can give it a screening at work, but that's not something I can actually promise. So maybe I'll just give Sanjay Super Team like, I don't know. I really don't know. That's hard. That one's hard. Maybe I'll give it like Sanjay Super Villain, a sequel. I don't know. This is hard to give. It's hard to give Sanjay Super Team something. Maybe I'll give it like Happy Meal toys. Yeah, let's give Happy Meal toys.
Let's
give Sanjay some Happy Meal toys
of like Vishnu and everybody. I don't know. It seems like perfect screen at work material.
Yeah. But for Borrowed Time, I'm gonna give it a live action remake so it can win the Oscar this time, because it's clearly dark enough and depressing with no real intellectual or emotional capabilities that would clearly win that category. So.
Yeah. All right. What do we do next time?
Well, we're doing the Good Dinosaur. We have a very cool guest, Dylan Crite from TikTok. We've already recorded that episode, so I don't know why I'm acting like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen. Because I do, and I know it's a good one. So come back for the Good Dino.
That is a really good one. Daniel was a...
Dylan.
Dylan was a... Dylan was a great guest. All right. Bye.
What? Mark, we have to do the sign out.
Oh, that's right. Okay, Looking for the Ocean is produced by Mark Young and Danny Vincent.
The show was edited by Julius Jefferson.
Our original artwork was by Sarah Knopf.
You can follow us on social media, Facebook at Looking for the Ocean, Instagram at Looking for the Ocean Pod, Twitter at Pixar Journey, and on our website, lookingfortheoceanpixar.podbean.com.
If I think I got this wrong in my Good Dinosaur episode, because I thought that it was coming out first, and then I forgot we recorded out of order. So if you're listening to this is really the one that's coming out next week. Thank you to everyone who came to the show, Mr. Marmalade. Sorry that it sold out before, like the entire run sold out before the first show. We're all very happy, and also like we wish that more people could have seen it, but also like super grateful. I'm gonna have something coming up. Either the day this comes out or very soon. I've got to post on social media about which one of those things is happening first. So I don't want to like commit to that here. But yeah, keep an eye out. And I think I'm going to like set up, I think by the time this comes out, I'm going to set up like a mailing list, just because I found out during the run of this play that some people like weren't on social media but wanted to know about the show. So I'm going to set up something like super chill. So maybe check that out. I don't care how many people sign up for that. I'm just going to put it on my website, and then you can go there if you want to be on the mailing list.
You You can follow me, Danny, at Blame It's on Letterboxd, and listen to my other podcast, The Snug Club, where we talk about the movies with the most Oscar nominations and no wins.
Wahoo!
All right, bye.
Bye.